My brother smirked as he looked at my 8-year-old son Leo and said, "We didn't order for your son." He handed Leo a soggy, lukewarm hot dog while his own kids greedily cut into juicy, $120 prime steaks, eagerly waiting for their lavish desserts. To make matters worse, my mother chimed in from the head of the table, sighing loudly. "You really should have packed him something, dear." The rest of the family stared, expecting me to break down or start a screaming match in the middle of this high-end restaurant. Instead, I just looked my brother dead in the eye, smiled calmly, and said, "Noted." Before I reveal what happened next, welcome to the channel. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has reached. When the waiter came back to our table, I stood up and made one announcement. Suddenly, every single jaw dropped, and the entire room went completely silent. My name is Olivia Carter, and at 34 years old, I've finally learned that some people will only respect you when you force them to. We were sitting inside the gleaming crystal chandelier dining room of the Obsidian, the most exclusive upscale restaurant in the city. The occasion was supposed to be a grand celebration for my brother Julian's major corporate promotion. As usual, the family dynamics were on full display. Julian had always been the golden child, coddled and backed blindly by our mother, while my 8-year-old son Leo and I were treated like mere afterthoughts who should just be grateful to be invited. The cruel reality of our standing became painfully clear when the main courses arrived. The scene played out exactly like a twisted nightmare. As the waiter set down sizzling, succulent $120 prime steaks and intricate luxury desserts for Julian's children, a sudden tense halt hit the table. Julian smiled a mocking smile, sliding a cheap, soggy, lukewarm hot dog directly in front of Leo. "We didn't order for your son," my brother said smoothly, adjusting his expensive cuffs. Before I could even process the sheer malice of the gesture, my mother chimed in, sighing loudly. "You really should have packed him something, dear." The entire table went dead silent, everyone eagerly waiting for me to break down, cry, or cause an embarrassing scene. But I didn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, I just smiled calmly, looked Julian dead in the eye, and whispered, "Noted." To understand why I remained so eerily calm while my son was being humiliated, you have to know the secret I've been keeping from my entire family. For the past 3 years, Julian and my mother have operated under the assumption that I was barely getting by, working a modest, low-level administrative job just to pay rent. They loved that narrative because it fed their bloated sense of superiority. What they didn't know, and what I had carefully hidden, was that my financial reality was completely different. I wasn't struggling at all. In fact, I was thriving beyond anything they could ever imagine. Through a private investment firm I established years ago, I had quietly acquired a massive, controlling interest in Vanguard Group, the very commercial real estate empire Julian worked for. Just 2 weeks prior to this dinner, the board of directors had presented me with a list of internal candidates up for a major executive promotion. Julian's name was at the top. Wanting to support my family despite their history of coldness, I personally signed off on his advancement, greenlighting a massive salary increase and a premium corporate expense account. Julian truly believed his own raw talent had earned him that gleaming new corner office. He had absolutely no idea that his sister held the absolute keys to his professional livelihood and the family's ultimate financial backing. They thought they were holding all the power at that table, but the reality was, I owned the very ground he was walking on. As the dinner progressed, the atmosphere at the table grew increasingly suffocating. Instead of letting the matter drop, Julian's wife, Vanessa, leaned forward, swirling her expensive wine with a tight, patronizing smile. "Don't take it to heart, Olivia," she murmured, her voice dripping with synthetic pity. It's just that business celebrations are truly meant for those who actively contribute to the family legacy. It wouldn't make sense to waste a premium culinary experience on a child who doesn't understand its value. My mother nodded in immediate agreement, completely ignoring how Leo was quietly staring down at his miserable plate. Meanwhile, Julian was completely intoxicated by his own newfound status. He leaned back in his chair, loudly boasting to the extended relatives about his brand-new executive privileges. He bragged about the exclusive corporate golf club memberships, the upcoming business trips to Paris, and the unrestricted corporate expense account that came with his title. To drive the point home, he dramatically pulled out a sleek black corporate credit card, slapping it down onto the white tablecloth with theatrical flair. "Tonight, everything goes on Vanguard Group's tab," he announced proudly. "When you reach the top, you don't worry about the price tag." I watched him flash that card to impress everyone, maintaining my polite, unbroken smile. Julian was so busy celebrating his illusions that he had no idea he was sprinting directly into a trap of his own making. He genuinely believed he was untouchable, entirely unaware that the hand that fed his ambition was about to cut the cord. The moment of reckoning arrived just as the waiter returned to the table, discreetly placing the final leather-bound bill folder beside Julian's elbow. Julian didn't even bother opening it. With a loud, arrogant chuckle, he gestured grandly to the black card he'd left resting on the tablecloth. "Just put the entire thing on my corporate account, Chief," Julian said, his voice carrying across the quiet restaurant. "Vanguard Group takes care of its own." That was my cue. I placed my cloth napkin neatly on the table, took a deep breath, and stood up. The sudden movement caught everyone's eye. "Actually," I said, my voice ringing out with an icy, calm authority that instantly cut through the chatter. "That corporate card won't be paying for anything tonight. In fact, Julian, you no longer have a corporate account." Julian blinked, a nervous, mocking laugh escaping his lips. "Olivia, what the hell are you talking about? Sit down, you're embarrassing yourself." I looked around the table, making eye contact with my stunned relatives, my frantic mother, and finally, my brother. For the past 3 years, I have been the principal majority stakeholder of Vanguard Group. I am the one who authorized your promotion 2 weeks ago. But after witnessing your complete lack of ethics, basic human empathy, and your blatant violation of corporate policy by attempting to use a business card for an unauthorized personal family dinner, your promotion is officially rescinded, effective immediately. Your account is locked. The silence that followed my announcement was absolute. For a few agonizing seconds, no one at the table moved. Julian's mocking smile frozen on his face, looking like a caricature of confusion. "You're insane," he finally spat, though his voice lacked its previous venom. "You? The majority stakeholder? Olivia, you're a low-level clerk who can barely afford her own life. Stop making things up because you're jealous of my success." My mother quickly chimed in, her face red with embarrassment. "Olivia, sit down this instant. How dare you make up such a ridiculous, malicious lie in front of everyone? You are ruining your brother's special night over a petty hot dog." But before she could finish her tirade, a sharp, repetitive buzzing sound cut through the tension. It was Julian's phone on the table. He glanced down carelessly, but as he read the screen, the remaining color drained entirely from his face. It was an automated corporate alert from Vanguard Group's internal system, explicitly notifying him that his executive credentials had been revoked and his corporate account was suspended due to an urgent compliance review. Julian's hands began to shake as he tried to open his work email, only to find himself completely locked out of the system. Panic, raw and unedited, took over. The waiter, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere, picked up the black corporate card, slid it through the terminal, and handed it back with a sympathetic frown. "I'm sorry, sir, but this card has been declined." Vanessa gasped, looking at her husband in horror, while my mother's arrogant posture completely collapsed. They all stared at me, the reality finally sinking in. The clerk they despised was actually the boss. I calmly reached across the table and took the leather-bound bill folder from the completely stunned waiter. Opening it, I reviewed the total, which had skyrocketed due to the endless rounds of top-shelf liquor, the expensive $120 prime steaks, and the premium desserts Julian's family had greedily ordered. I pulled my own personal platinum card from my purse, handed it to the waiter, and gave him a clear, unmistakable instruction. I will be paying for my meal, my son's meal, and a $200 tip for your excellent service tonight, I said, my voice cutting through the heavy silence of the room. However, please separate the premium steaks, the alcohol, and all of the luxury desserts onto a completely separate check. My brother Julian will be handling that portion personally. Vanessa's jaw dropped, and Julian looked as if he might physically collapse right into his chair. With his corporate card completely deactivated, his promotion instantly vaporized, and his personal bank accounts already drowning in massive, unmanaged debt. A multi-thousand-dollar restaurant bill was a catastrophic blow he simply could not afford. My mother began to frantically whisper to the surrounding relatives, begging someone to step in and handle the bill, but everyone suddenly found the floor patterns deeply fascinating, completely refusing to make eye contact. I stood up, slid my card back into my purse, and gently took Leo by the hand. He looked up at me, a bright, happy smile finally breaking across his face. "Come on, sweetie," I said loudly enough for the entire table to hear. "Let's leave this place. We are going to get the absolute best ice cream in town." We walked out, leaving them to face the consequences. It has been 3 months since that fateful dinner at the Obsidian, and the family dynamics have permanently altered. Julian was ultimately demoted to a low-level position within the company, forced to work under strict corporate compliance just to keep his job. With their illusions of unearned superiority completely shattered, my mother and Vanessa have finally learned to respect my boundaries, realizing that my silence was never a sign of weakness. Standing up to their toxic behavior didn't just change how they treat me. It showed my son Leo that we are defined by our dignity, not by the cruel labels others try to force upon us. Now, I'm curious about all of you who have listened to my story tonight. What would you have done if you were standing in my shoes? Would you have swallowed your pride to save your brother from public embarrassment, or would you have let him learn his lesson the hard way? Comment your thoughts and your city below so we can keep this conversation going. Meanwhile, I am leaving 2 other unbelievable stories of family secrets and ultimate reversals right here on the final screen. They are absolute channel favorites, and they will definitely shock you. Thank you so much for watching until the very end, and I will see you in the next story.